In Activity 4, Kites, students learn how lift is achieved and sustained in kites. They first explore the role of wind in keeping a kite in the air, and then observe how the angle of attack contributes to lift. Finally, students build and fly their own kites. You will need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 4, Parts A and B, small paper clips, plastic straws, tongue depressors, an index card, a pipe cleaner, kite tail pattern, kite string, transparent tape, and tips for safe kite flight. You will also need to provide a small electrical fan, plain paper, a metric ruler, and scissors. To prepare for Session 1, make a copy of Activity Sheet 4, Part A for each student. Set up a fan at the end of a table. You will need a fan, an index card, kite string, a pipe cleaner, and some tape for a classroom demonstration. To begin Session 1, distribute a copy of Activity Sheet 4, Part A to each student. Help students identify and label the parts of a kite, including the frame, the bridle, the flying line, and the tail. Ask students, what is needed to lift a kite into the air? Students will probably think that wind lifts a kite. Inform students that unlike lighter than aircrafts, which achieve lift by floating, heavier than aircrafts achieve lift because of the movement of air against and around their surfaces. Hold up an index card and tell students to imagine that the card is a kite. Make a simple frame by cutting a pipe cleaner in half and taping one piece lengthwise to the middle of the card. Then cut 2 pieces of string 40 centimeters long each. Tape these strings to one end of the index card and tie a knot in the middle. These strings are the flying lines. Cut 2 more pieces of string 20 centimeters long and tape them to the opposite side of the card. Finally, tape the ends of these 2 strings to the table about 1 meter from the fan. Begin the demonstration by asking, how do you launch a kite? Students should know that you have to hold the kite so that it catches the wind. Pick up the flying lines, turn on the fan, and let the air blow the index card into an upright position perpendicular to the table. Ask students, what do we need to do to get this kite to lift off the table? Accept all answers. Slowly pull the flying line so that the top edge of the card begins to tilt forward toward the fan until the card lifts off the table. Then ask, what caused the kite to lift off the table? Students should notice that the angle of the kite changed. Tell students that in order to get this kite to lift, you have to change the angle of attack, the angle at which the wind hits the surface of the kite. Guide students to understand that when the card is held at an angle to the wind, it gets pushed backward and upward. Then pull the strings to tilt the kite until it is nearly parallel with the table, making the angle of attack smaller. Ask students, why did the kite fall? When the angle of attack is too small, the kite loses lift. Next, let go of the strings and let the card get blown backward. Ask students, why do you think the kite fell when I let go of the strings? The kite fell because it was no longer being held in a position that allowed it to be pushed backward and upward. Let students know that in the next session they are going to build their own kites and fly them outdoors. Return all materials to the kit. To prepare for Session 2, make a copy of Activity Sheet 4, Part B for each student. Choose a dry, mildly breezy day to fly the kites. You and your students will each need a sheet of paper, a plastic straw, a paper clip, a tongue depressor, kite string, and some tape. To begin Session 2, distribute Activity Sheet 4, Part B, and review the instructions together. Next, distribute the materials and a copy of the kite tail pattern to each student. Allow students time to build their kites and make one for yourself. After everyone is finished, review the parts of their kite. The straw is the frame, the sheet of paper is the kite covering, the paper clip is the bridle, the string is the flying line, and the curly strip of paper taped to the back of the kite is the tail. Then bring the students and their kites outdoors. Have students stand with their backs to the wind. Tell them to hold their kites up in front of them at an angle and to slowly let out the flying line. If the kite nosedives, lengthen its tail. If it falls backward, shorten its tail. If the kite is not balanced, try adjusting the location of the paper clip slightly. Give students ample time to launch and fly their kites. After all students have successfully flown their kites, encourage them to test the kite again, this time without the kite tail. Ask students, "What do you think the tail is for?" Students should respond that the tail provides stability for the kite and acts like a rudder. Finally, inform students that in the next activity, airplane design, they are going to make and fly paper airplanes. To conclude Session 2, let students keep their kites. Discard any scraps of string, straws, and paper. Return the rolls of string and tape to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.